Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General Dickinson, I'd like to follow up on Tim Kaine's questions a little bit about the security of our space assets. It seems to me that in a conflict, the very first thing that an enemy will try to do is a major cyber attack and to try to blind us. Senator Kaine talked about commercial satellites. Is redundancy itself a strategy for protecting the assets? In other words, lots and lots of small satellites rather than these large multi-billion-dollar satellites that we've traditionally depended upon, but a redundant constellation of small satellites that would be harder to disable. Because do you agree with me that going after our satellites would be one of the first things an adversary would do in a conflict?
Thank you, Senator. So my opinion on that is I believe the small satellites, many satellites in orbit, provides us a very redundant, resilient capability that would be very difficult to degrade once we have it established. It'll provide us the ability to do many different types of missions, whether it's communications, whether it's ISR, whether it's missile warning. Those types of activities, I think, will absolutely be more redundant, more resilient if we have what I would call a mesh network, if you will, in a constellation. In terms of what would happen first, I believe we are in competition each day, both space and cyber. And for us, our ability to compete on a daily basis in the competition phase is very important to what we're doing. And that could very well be the first that you mentioned, could be a cyber attack followed by something in space. But we're watching that each and every day. And like I said, I think in terms of the redundancy, that is a great technique or opportunity.
Thank you. Admiral Richards, one of the scariest terms I've heard recently is escalate to de-escalate, which I understand is a stated policy of the Russians in terms of the use of tactical nuclear weapons in order to shock everyone into backing off. Is that something that concerns you in terms of our relationship to Russia and their relationship to nuclear weapons?
Senator, yes. The short answer is yes. Actually, it may be thought of more as escalate to win, but not to mince words. And so the whole idea here is for that and anything else they consider doing to show that that won't work, right? That the costs that we could impose are greater than what they may gain by attempting that strategy. That is the essence of deterrence here. And in fact, the introduction of the low-yield ballistic missile weapon, I remind, we have always had a low-yield capability inside the arsenal. We just added one now that has a much higher probability of facing the threats that we have today. We think that that has successfully improved deterrence against that very strategy.
Well, to go back to Senator Round's question, the fundamental strategy here, and a lot of people, we've gone 25 or 30 years and not thought too much about nuclear weapons, but the whole idea is that those other countries that have nuclear weapons know that we do too, and that we have the capability to inflict enormous damage on them if they use the nuclear weapons. That theory of deterrence has worked for 70 years. I take it from your comments that you believe modernization is critical to maintaining the credibility of the deterrent. It's not a deterrent unless your adversaries believe it will work. And that's the case. Isn't that the essential case for modernization?
Absolutely, sir. Fundamentally, a deterrent is not credible unless the opponent or the other side does the calculation and comes up with, we can either deny that, missile defense is a good example of it, or we can impose a cost. It doesn't have to be a nuclear cost. We are thinking very hard. We're the only nation that can go all domain worldwide. I applaud the Secretary's efforts at improving cross-domain deterrence. But in the end, given the threats that we face, there has to be a nuclear component to it because we don't have a combination of other things yet that can deter that.
Well, the fundamental theory is that you have nuclear weapons in order to never have to use them. That's what it's all about, isn't it, Admiral?
It is, and I have said that before, in that it's the only weapon system you don't have to pull the trigger on for it to work. The mere destructive potential of the system changes the way people think. It changes the decisions that they make. That's what we mean by we use it every day.
A very quick question. I'm out of time, but very quick question. If there were some serious threat, how long would it take to get the bombers aloft?
Sir, it's a short period of time. I'd prefer to answer that in closed session if I could.
We'll follow up later. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.